One of the biggest problems I see already is most players have no idea how to play proper positioning in Marvel Rivals. It's very clear just from this clip. Lots out in the open, they're easy to take out. We're going to solve that by shifting your mindset with a concept, and it's why you lose most of your encounters even before you start the round, or even mid-round before you even start fighting. So let's give the high-level concept breakdown here in MS Paint, and then we're going to go into the actual custom match itself and break it down further. My goal is to explain this concept. We're going to draw 3 lines. They're not going to be perfect. We're going to have point A, B, and C. Now, remember, with positioning, I can come up with lots of different videos, so please be sure and leave a like. Let me know that you want more of this, because we could definitely break this down per map and go more in depth. Today, though, I want to really break down just the high-level concept of this. Let's say, for example, your team is holding a position A that is a strong point that has great cover, great line of sight, and in between, it's really rough and rocky, right? You want to get to the next big point, which is here on B. And then if you get onto the actual point, let's pretend this here is actually the objective, right? So you take point A to B to C, and we could call this in between subset like B.1, B.2, B.3, and so forth to become a lot more dynamic. But as we go in game, because we're going to do that next, we're going to actually hop into an empty server and break down step by step really strong points in which you can hold. And if you do this, the game gets a lot more easy as you start to say, okay, now that, let's say, for example, let's backtrack here. Let's say you get pushed off and you are trying to play domination and they take the point, but you back up and they keep pushing forward onto you and you have to back up to your other position. I think the biggest mistake I see most Marvel Rival players make is that once they lose their stronghold, that's pretty much it for them. And then they just kind of stagger and move in between the power positions. And that's just like you saw at the starting of the clip, where they are not having a great hold back or not flanking and taking an ideal position. So now that we've covered high level just this idea and concept, let's go in game and break this down even further. I realize that most players also don't know how to do this, so what we're going to teach is how to create a custom lobby that you can go in and just explore the map. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to change mode, you're going to click on custom game here, and then you're going to hit create. This is one of the most important things. If you are a player who's very new to the game and you're kind of lost in just where to play, don't worry, don't stress. This is a great moment to where you can just hop into an empty server and just learn the map and really explore the game itself. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and select Convoy just because it has that nice setup. Domination also is really great as well. But we're going to go ahead and do Symbiotic Surface here, right? And you don't, at this point, you don't have to do anything else. You can just hit start. So once you hit start, everything gets set up and then you're pretty much good to go. Now, once the server starts, depending if you are attacking or defending, in this example, we're defending. And just remember, you kind of have to go through the motions for everything to load up. And of course, if you capture it, then it definitely moves the points along. You're just kind of playing by yourself. So now what we're going to discuss is, remember that overlay. I'm going to overlay it here as we traverse back to the back of point A, B, and C before we get to the point. Okay, positioning has to do with what are strongholds, right? You don't want to be out here in the open. That's not going to be good because you have no cover. The only cover you kind of have is right here, and you could make that, but then your fallback plan isn't necessarily going to be ideal. You could probably fall back over here. That's also a plan. But let's say, for example, the first thing when you're looking for positioning is information, okay? So the first thing we look when we're right here is, are they going to hold aggressively in the back right here? Or are they going to be right here? Let's say, for example, they are holding there on the left. Well, then this makes a perfect segue to go to point B, right? This is a great spot because we can keep our body small and keep up pressure. The biggest mistake I see players do, and this could be a walk up too, let's say, for example, it could be a makeshift, maybe say B.1, right? Is moving up, let's say, a Strange or a Magneto. But why do that when you already have cover here and you can move forward and also counteract this positioning here? Now let's say there's nobody here, right? Let's go back. Let's just reverse, okay? Then you could technically already move up to the right and line of sight your opponent because they're not going to see you running up. They'll see if you jump over, right? You can already technically be right here and keep a great offensive pressure. And then your next point could be, let's say we add another one before C, or I guess let's just say D is the point, but you could actually go for another position in the back. Now this is a little bit risky, but at least you have an angle here to kind of shoot and look and then catch them out. Because notice how at this point their positioning is no longer ideal. And most positioning in the game, specifically when there's a point, doesn't have much cover whatsoever, right? You can shoot things and kind of move stuff around, and you can block off walls and stuff like that for these specific areas, and they can kind of help, right? You see that? But at the end of the day, if you're physically on the point, you'll notice that most points do not have cover, because if they did, then it would pretty much lean to always being the defenders of that specific point. So keep that in mind. So remember, you're going from point A to point B. So let's go back again. I'm going to overlay it one last time so we understand the concept of just trying to work our way into a space, right? We have our first point, which is not here, but looking for information and then still able to shoot from here. Then we say, okay, well, we're going to push up. Our next point is going to be B over here. Not anywhere else, because this is a strong spot. At least we can hold an angle. We can maintain positioning. Not hiding behind this, because this is not strong positioning, right? And then once we're done there and we push them off, then we can push forward and start scaling onto the point and then pretty much battle it out because we've gotten our space, right? Now, when it comes to good positioning, what you're looking for as we start to scale backwards is you're looking for as much cover and as much height, ideally, as possible. Let's say you got pushed off the point, which is going to be pretty common. Let's say we were to, the point is lost. Oh no, we've lost it. What do we do? Well, at that point, you can start backing up and traversing to the other area, right? You don't want to just stand out in the open here, because then the door opens, there's no cover, right? Well, your best play is here. And I know you're giving up a lot of space, but this is a strong spot strategically, because you could shoot them, slow them. You can also come across over here, and that's also a fantastic spot to be in as well. Even this spot, as you kind of back up, gives you a little bit of cover, but the common mistake I see players make is they're always out in the open. Now, this could be great ways for you to set up as a melee character and stall. At least you know where to hide. You know, notice that this comes with the number one, let's say Wolverine, for example, and that they are very good at positioning themselves in areas and where they know they're going to see weaknesses. That's one of the most important things, because they're going to cash them out because they're going to have better positioning. So let's break that down, and let's say on domination, and let's talk about that, which is also really important. If you step away, at least understanding A, B, C, like where are your power positions, then this game becomes really, really simple, because it always plays the same. These maps don't change much outside of what you see. So let's go ahead and do a domination round. Let's just do this one. Same kind of style of map, right? Where everything loads up, takes a little bit of time. And you'll get better, and you'll even have other alternatives. That's why I encourage just to explore the map and really understand what's going on. Let's go ahead and I guess pick Wolverine as we kind of explore, because range also has different positioning compared to melee. That's also important. But as you'll start to comment in the comment section saying, oh, this is where I hold, this is what I do. And that's the whole premise of this video. As long as I get you thinking about it, you're already doing more than what most players do that are probably never going to discover this video. It may not even do that well, but if you step away with this knowledge, my gosh, are you going to be set up for success? And that's my biggest goal for you guys. So because this takes a while to set up, like I said,
This ain't my first rodeo.
I'm going to skip ahead and we'll discuss the next points again once it lets us play. One thing people do is initially they start to pretty much waste a lot of their abilities right off the riff, right? They'll start speed boosting. But because you're already safe, you don't necessarily have to do it. And if you're not the most aggressive person or the tank is supposed to be in front, you don't have to always rush there. Well, rushing there is important, because keep in mind, the mission area doesn't unlock until a bit of time. So with domination, it's a little bit more different because everyone is already trying to make those holds. Initially, you always want to have the power of height. That would always be ideal, but let's say you lose it. Depending on what happens and how things get blown up is where you start to traverse and back up into those areas. This is where you can start blowing out walls and getting rid of that positioning, right? All that's pretty important. And then if you back up, where can you back up to? Well, you don't want to stand out in the open here. Using those stairs and keeping those areas like this are always great, so then you could pretty much lurk from the shadows. And if you're a mobility legend, that's when you start to hold different areas onto height and find those areas and little nooks that you didn't even really think to consider when trying to make that jump, especially when you're trying to look right here. You got to pretty much use your third person, because it can't see you, but you can see them and identify who is the weakest and how to start to scale forward. Like I said, Domination is that type of map, and it's why I'm kind of explaining it now, where unlike Convoy, where those points are pretty much cut and dry as you start scaling, Domination is about trying to find those little nooks and little areas that are going to give you the advantage as you're holding, especially like right here. And let's say, well, let's go up top, and the difference that it can make as you start to explore more of this map. Because while everyone holds here, and that's great because you're holding the point, you don't have to have everyone there, right? And everyone always traverses out in the open and then starts blasting here. And I even see it right here. They'll start looking like right there at that angle. And it's just not doing you any favors because you're not peeking in a strategically strong spot at all. Even though everyone's like, okay, I can see them. They're out in the open. Trying to find ways to scale and get people off the height right here and start moving forward is better instead of being in the most predictable spots. This is probably the most predictable area in which, because it's got the HP and people peek here and it can be strong, but you can also lose that duel pretty easily. So what I'm encouraging you to do is think outside the box and peek different angles if you notice they have holds there, and start to scale up and look for different ways to approach a fight. We'll say, for example, this can be a really strong spot if they're looking up there. Start to incorporate the last concept as you go from point A to B and C, especially with Domination, on where do you believe the enemy is focused and where do you believe that you can find the best positioning. I know at the end here, it feels a little more rambly because it starts to become theory and where it's not all the same. Let's say we have 5 people up here and you are the only one. Well, then you're gonna have to back up a little bit and reposition because that's too much pressure. And how are you going to alleviate that pressure? Well, if you start getting them to focus here, you pull one away, you get one flanked in the back, you start using your ult, and then you scale forward, essentially. Then you start thinking outside the box and using abilities, and that's the point of part probably 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 in terms of this positioning guide, because I've given you the high-level concept. When you start adding in abilities and the fact you can traverse and do everything else, it gets really exciting and really interesting to kind of break down. I hope overall that this gets you thinking and making sure that you're hiding around corners more effectively, that you're making sure that your legend is at least being covered by the most part instead of just being out in the open. As long as you are no longer just blatantly sitting out in the open, and sometimes you kind of have to, but that's why you're a tank, right? If you're a tank here and you have the wall for Strange and everyone's behind it, you've effectively made cover just as much as you could in the back over here trying to have cover as well. Which is also the concept of why tanks are so important and vital, how they can change the game in terms of positioning. So if you found this helpful, please leave a like, hopefully utilize these servers. Comment that I'm wrong, it's totally okay. My goal was just to make sure that I'm giving you guys the concept, because positioning can also be subjective based on variables. Thank you guys again. I'm really excited to share this kind of knowledge with you all, and if you enjoy, I'll see you on the next one.